the Moneyweb Crypto Podcast, where we discuss all things crypto related. Your host, Kieran Ryan.
Is this what happens when you overregulate crypto? South Africa spent several years bringing crypto into the regulated financial system, but are we overdoing it? We've just worked our way off the Financial Action Task Force's grey list, but we're now trying to work our way to the top of the class, it looks like, maybe going above and beyond what the FATF wants. Crypto service providers must now be licensed. They must comply with anti-money laundering rules and report suspicious transactions. But just as the industry gains regulatory legitimacy, the South African Reserve Bank and National Treasury are proposing a far more restrictive regime for moving crypto across borders. Under the draft framework, cross-border transfers will now have to go through authorized crypto providers and be reported to the Reserve Bank. Transfers from a South African platform to a private wallet may also be treated as cross-border, while initially only individuals and not businesses would be permitted to externalize crypto within their existing foreign investment allowances. Now, the authorities say this will close regulatory gaps and prevent illicit capital flows. Others are arguing this could undermine self-custody, exclude South African companies from stablecoin-based commerce, and chase crypto entrepreneurs offshore. Is this what happens when crypto is overregulated? Well, who better to discuss this with but Karel van Wyk, CEO of crypto payments company Moneyweb. Karel, by the way, was also a co-founder of Luno, though he's since left that. Karel, good to talk to you again. Thank you for your time. Before we get into the details, what do you think the problem is that the Reserve Bank and National Treasury are trying to solve? And is there evidence that the scale of the problem justifies the controls that they're proposing?
Well, Kieran, there is a problem. The main problem is that we're currently in a gray area. The question is whether crypto assets fall under the current exchange control regime. And what we have so far is two conflicting high court cases with two different judges that are finding the opposite conclusions. So there's definitely a problem. The problem is that of uncertainty. And there is activity in this gray area that I suppose from the Reserve Bank's point of view is not what they want. So we do need clarity. And that is what we were expecting. But I have to say that I don't know if that is what we are receiving.
Karel, under the draft framework, a transfer from a South African crypto platform to a non-custodial or a private wallet, it's treated as a cross-border transaction. That's the proposal anyway. In your view, is this going to be a problem, and could it make self-custody increasingly difficult for South Africans? And why is self-custody that important anyway?
Self-custody means that you keep your own funds safe. This is the equivalent of having cash in a wallet that you carry on your person. In the community, the Bitcoin community and the crypto community, this is seen as the main benefit of the money, because as you probably know, the original white paper of Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Now we can go into why that is favorable, but let's rather look at the question. The question asks, will this make it more difficult for people to keep their own money on their own person? And the answer is invariably yes, it will make it more difficult. Another comment there maybe is that even though you will be able to send funds from a regulated exchange locally to a private wallet, you will not be permitted to move those funds back. So that means you're blocked from sending funds from your private wallet to a local regulated exchange. And that doesn't prevent you from using a private wallet because you can still move your funds from a private wallet to an international or a foreign exchange. And from there, then you can move it back in to the domestic exchange. And so we don't understand why there's this asymmetry when it comes to private wallets. And fundamentally, it also doesn't make sense to treat private wallets that's held locally by a local individual as a foreign asset. But this is what the manual seems to imply.
Okay, Karel, give us the high-level view here. What impact do you think this is going to have on crypto generally in South Africa? In terms of innovation, the kind of work that you are doing, in terms of the adoption rate. Where do you think this is going to lead us?
If we look at the industry players, I mean, we've built up a fairly sophisticated companies in South Africa around crypto that's well regulated and that's operating very effectively. These this draft, if it's implemented, will have a significant negative impact on the local industry. I can see that there will probably be major crypto asset companies today that might have to reduce their size significantly or even shut down. In terms of the market, so in other words, the crypto asset trading market will probably see a significant impact as well. There might be an inversion of market dynamics where at the moment there's a limited supply and excess demand. We might see that flip around where there's a excess supply even. We can potentially go into that. And then, of course, on individuals and and private rights, there seems to be an imposition in the ability to hold your own funds and to have something that is private money. So this will definitely have far-reaching impact. And all I can see this doing is pushing activity offshore and into peer-to-peer networks. So yeah, very bad actually for the local environment.
I mean, if they go through with these proposed changes, particularly on the cross-border side, surely there's likely to be some kind of legal challenge. There must be people who are looking at them and say, well, this is going to be an absolute disaster for our business. And they're prepared to take on National Treasury and the Reserve Bank. You've already mentioned these two court cases, which are, contradictory findings from two different judges. So there's complete lack of legal clarity here. Do you think this is going to happen where if they're trying to push through these proposals, it's going to end up in a court challenge?
I expect that it will be challenged on multiple levels and even internally. I mean, if we look at where our regulations have come from, so from the IFWG's position paper in 2021, the declaration of crypto assets as financial instruments by the FSCA in 2022, there seems to have been a plan that's being executed in conjunction with international bodies like the FATF, local bodies like the FIC, FSCA, and then what we see today is something that catches us off guard. It seems to come out of left field, and I'm worried that this is being driven outside of the consultation of the likes of other regulators, like even the FATF itself recommends against making these kind of rules that is far more strict locally than it is internationally, because their position is that if you do this, it will drive activity offshore and diminish the local regulators' ability to perform their function well. I think at the end of the day, what we would like to see is regulation that's fair, that is applied equally to everyone. We don't want special treatment as crypto asset service providers. But what we're receiving here is something that seems to be anti-competitive. And another thing that worries me is that maybe this is serving interests of a competing industry. Because why is it that the crypto asset industry won't be able to facilitate legal cross-border transactions for businesses? There's massive potential for businesses, and particularly in Africa, to help solve payments using crypto rails due to reduce costs, reduce friction, better transparency, and greater interoperability.
This, of course, is one of the big objections that businesses are excluded. They may not use Bitcoin, stablecoin, or any other form of crypto or any crypto rail for things like payments or imports or international trade. That seems discriminatory, and I would imagine this is if it goes through like this is a point that will be attacked in court. The other suggestion being that, what the National Treasury and Reserve Bank are doing is they're flying a balloon just basically to see what reaction they get. It's a fairly extreme view, and I think they've got comments which have maybe brought them a bit down to earth. What do you think? Do you think that once they've absorbed all the comments that have come from the industry, that they will settle down and soften these regulations?
That's hard to say. I don't have strong evidence of these kind of consultation processes really taking into account all the comprehensive views. They might concede on some points, but there seems to be quite a strong and clear agenda from their perspective to treat crypto assets as something that is foreign and essentially alien to the local financial system. And so my worry at this point is that it's not just them setting up a balloon, like you say, but this is actually what they want to achieve, and they're pushing very strongly for it.
Crypto service providers, they argue that they're already licensed by the FSCA, Financial Sector Conduct Authority. They're subject to Financial Intelligence Center requirements. We've got the travel rule. They've got to report all these transactions. You've got to have the identity of both the sender and the receiver. So these new rules, I mean, before we went on, you're just talking about the amount of time that you're spending just on regulations. And I imagine this has just been replicated all across the country. If you're a crypto provider, you're spending a huge amount of time filling in paperwork for all these regulations. Is that correct?
In enormous amounts of times, not only filling in the paperwork, but also reading through it and interpreting it. In many cases, there's ambiguity. I think in the latest draft capital flow management publications and in this draft manual, there's a lot of ambiguity. So, for example, you mentioned that crypto asset service providers are really some of the most highly regulated players in the local financial industry. Now this introduces a new concept of an authorized CASP, but we don't even know what that authorization framework will look like. So there's a lot of gray area that we have to navigate.
Where do you see this going in terms of people? You mentioned the Bitcoin white paper, peer-to-peer cash system for digital assets. Do you think that a lot of people will go towards decentralized finance, that they will store their crypto on hard wallets? They'll start hiding stuff from the authorities. Is that inevitably where we're going?
Yes. I think that for those people who are already used to using their own private wallets, already using Bitcoin and crypto for payments, this doesn't prevent them from doing so. Like I said, you can still, where you are prevented from sending your funds from your private wallet to an exchange, you will be able to hop that through an international exchange. You can send it from private wallet to an international exchange. Why? Because there's no similar precedent like this internationally where you're prevented from using a private wallet. So this will absolutely push activity offshore and into these peer-to-peer networks. It won't prevent the activity at all, I don't think so. And if we look at the benefits of this, like what we've seen in the payment space locally, where we've seen poor communities that can engage with this and immediately have something that they can store in the digital format instead of physical cash in a wallet where it subjects them to physical threat. Those kind of things, I don't see that going away. They'll just keep going, but they'll end up having these having to jump through hoops eventually to make it work.
Do you think the regulators understand or misunderstand the role of decentralized networks and private wallets? Where does this come from? Because it does seem to be a deviation from the inter-financial, the group that does the collaboration with the authorities, the IFTWD.
Interfinance working group, yes, IFWG. Look, I don't want to lump all regulators under one banner. The regulators in general, FSCA, FCA, they are well informed. They've got highly competent people that work for them. I've spoken to many of them. But it does seem like in this case, like I said, that these draft publications that are coming out is being driven from either a position of great fear, which may be a revealed lack of understanding, or potentially even trying to avoid competition in some sectors. So it's very difficult for me to say that I think it's just a case of people that are ignorant. And also, I don't think that it is in line with the regulations as they have been developing over time. IFWG, FATF, FIC, they have been speaking on private wallets. They've been sending out communication on private wallets, how to manage private wallets. risk-based approach, etc. And now suddenly the use of private wallets are banned in one direction. That is highly unexpected.
Where does this lead us? If we go through with this, we're a bit of an outlier in international terms, are we not? This is not even what the FATF recommends. Why are we doing this? And you talked about competition. So I presume you're talking there about the banks that potentially see stablecoin payments and transfers as a threat to their business. Is that what we're looking at here?
Well, again, I think what we are saying is that there is a problem. There is a lack of clarity, and there are people that are taking chances and operating in this gray zone, sending money cross-border using stable tokens and other crypto tokens. What we want is clarity, and what we want is a fair treatment. And I see no reason why we can't apply clear rules, not only to private cross-border crypto transactions, but also business cross-border transactions. And there's a massive potential there for new industry and new business to be built on top of. But this is just being cut off without any clear motivation. And so I think where this leaves us is a crippled local crypto asset industry, markets with funny dynamics, and it just entrenches this exchange control regime that's been with us for the past 60 plus years. And I suppose that'll then just be with us again for the next 100 years. And there's a whole host of other impacts that has. I think what this really does is it raises the question of, why is it that these rules can be created and applied in an asymmetric way, in an unfair way like this, where it impacts and targets a specific industry? And maybe we should start to think about where these rules come from in the first place, and start to revisit, why are we the outlier from the world? Why do we have these significantly more restrictive rules than we see elsewhere?
All right, we're going to leave it there. Carl van Dyk, thanks very much. Carl is the CEO of Money Badger.
Thanks for listening to the Moneyweb Crypto Podcast, hosted by Kieran Ryan. To listen to our other podcasts, go to moneyweb.co.za or the Moneyweb app and follow Moneyweb News for daily updates.